day and it's gone. Little by little it fritters away. Try as you may, can never replace it. As long as you treasure whatever it is can never be wasted. Oh, whoa, whoa.
The headlines that have dominated this week in Formula One all concern $100 million fines and the exclusion of McLaren from a Constructors' Championship they were leading. And the fallout from the ending of the so-called spying scandal has reverberated all weekend through this paddock at Spa. But if ever Formula One needed a breath of fresh air, then a return to this legendary circuit deep in the Ardennes can provide it. The World Motorsport Council in Paris on Thursday handed down some very severe penalties, but they left alone the points totals of the two McLaren drivers, Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. And that means that this terrific battle for the Drivers' Championship can continue at this Belgian Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton, with his championship lead reduced to 3 points over Alonso after Alonso's victory in Italy, but the Ferraris are still a threat to this all-McLaren contest, especially Kimi Raikkonen, who is 18 points off Hamilton's lead and on pole position for this 14th round of the championship. Martin Brundle and James Allen will describe this Belgian Grand Prix after James has taken us through the grid.
It's the first all-Ferrari front row of 2007. Amazing, isn't it? Raikkonen's third pole of the season. He has Massa alongside him. Through to row 2. Alonso hasn't won this season from third. Hamilton looks like he's carried a bit of extra fuel. He's trying something different today. Rosberg, outstanding in the Williams, has Heidfeld for company on row 3. Webber and Trulli again both punching well above their weight, 7th and 8th. Kovalainen's really beginning to look the part now. He's 9th with Ralf Schumacher alongside him. Coulthard and Button, two Brits on row 6. Row 7, Liuzzi, his best since Canada, and Kubica's 14th, having changed an engine. Wirtz and Vettel make up row 8. Row 9, Rubens Barrichello and Takuma Sato. Super Guri's not really firing this weekend. Adrian Sutil in the new Spiker has Davidson alongside him. That's his worst of the season. Yamamoto's 21st, and Fisichella changed an engine after qualifying, so he's at the back of the grid.
Spectacular Spa-Francorchamps for the Belgian Grand Prix. 7 kilometres, that's 4.6 miles. 1 3/4 minutes it takes a Formula One car to go around this track. It's very much man and machine versus the track and the elements. Lots of contour changes through the valleys. The drivers love it. Several changes for this year, including another reprofiling of the bus stop chicane. We've lost that unique feature of days gone by, but there could be some other advantages. I can see plenty of overtaking going on here, though. 200 miles an hour on the exit of Blanchimont, an uphill braking zone, and then into a very tight right and left, leading onto that longer pit straight. There's one area, though, that the drivers are very unhappy about, and that's the pit lane. Now, it's a fair drop if you do a Kubica and fly over the wall, but I doubt very much that's going to happen. But it is dangerous on the way in. The drivers are saying they can't see between the two walls. So they put some chevron marks on one of them in a day-glow orange. It's very tight. And the real problem here is that it's at full racing speed because the speed limit doesn't start until way down there. So an accident in here, or even just a broken down car, it's not wide enough for two cars to pass.
Hello, everybody. Well, Fernando Alonso said on Thursday, we all love Spa, and the rest of us say amen to that. We're all ready to go then. 44 laps of the Belgian Grand Prix. Great to be back at Spa. The race is go. Raikkonen on the left, Massa on the right. Hamilton is chopped out by Alonso very wide as he go into La Source. Alonso didn't want anything from Hamilton there. Hamilton's pushed right off the grass. He's coming back on again, but Alonso, is he going to get side by side with him? Hamilton's going to keep his foot down here. Alonso will have to lift. Who's going to lift of the two McLaren drivers? Neither of them do. Hamilton eventually has to, as Alonso goes through with Rosberg right behind him. That was pretty crude stuff between the two McLaren guys at the start line. Raikkonen leads, though, looking in his mirrors to see where Massa is.
Hard but fair, though. Having no problems with that as they then fall into line. Hamilton got pushed out wide. Alonso's entitled to take up his racing line. And then Hamilton just gained so much traction out there on the runoff apron. Coulthard in between the two Toyotas. He's 10th at the moment, having started 11th, but it's Raikkonen, Massa, Alonso, Hamilton.
Yep, Raikkonen leads. It's a Ferrari 1-2 at Spa at the moment. Alonso third. Fourth is Hamilton. Fifth, Rosberg. Sixth is Heikki Kovalainen. Great start by him. Mark Webber is seventh. Eighth, down to eighth, is Heidfeld, who was about a metre in front of his start block on the line. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Ralf Schumacher is ninth. David Coulthard is 10th. Jarno Trulli behind him in 11th spot. We're riding on board with the reigning world champion, trying to live with the Ferraris in this opening stage. Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see if Heidfeld gets a penalty for that, because I think it's relative movement they monitor rather than actual position. But we'll wait to find out. But effectively, he gets a metre head start. It's bad news for Webber that Kovalainen is in front, because I'd be sure Webber's 2 stopping and Kovalainen is 1 stopping. Webber looking like he urgently wants to clear that Renault.
It's been a great start for the Spiker of Adrian Sutil. He's up to 16th. That's a revised car. But Spiker, of course, brought out for the first time in Monza as Webber looks to get past Kovalainen. The extra weight in that Renault is going to slow Webber down. He's planning to come in about 7 laps earlier than Kovalainen, and so he's going to be a lot slower than he could potentially be were he to get himself in front of the Finnish driver. This then the battle for 6th and 7th places. And I've often talked about Formula One being a front race, a middle race and a back race. Here's the front race, 2 Ferraris against 2 McLarens. The middle race today is very intense, and there are some good points to be had as Webber takes another look at Kovalainen.
Heidfeld too, having slipped back effectively from that start slot anyway. Buttons 12 for those that support the Brits, and Anthony Davis at 21st. Fisichella out of the race in the spare car, having surely had problems in the other car going to the grid. So a dismal weekend for Giancarlo Fisichella. Meanwhile, Kovalainen up in 6th place for Renault. We think 1 stopping. They wouldn't confirm it on the start line, and I don't blame Alan Permain for that. But I think Kovalainen should be looking handy from there. Alex Wirtz continuing his disappointing weekend. Where was he? He's shown down in 21st now.
Webber tucks himself up once again behind Kovalainen. They're both using the same Renault engine here, but Webber's got a good toe. He goes to the outside line knowing that Kovalainen will go defensive. And it's Renault against Renault in the horsepower stakes. He's taken the line through, and it's a beautiful pass by Mark Webber. It's important.
Beautifully done by Webber, because he edged Kovalainen onto the dirtier, bumpier side of the track there. And Kovalainen knew he was going to have to lift early if he had any prayer of making the apex of the chicane. And really classy stuff there. 2 brilliant pieces of driving, particularly the 2. I hope we get a replay of Hamilton and Alonso side by side all the way down the hill. We're going to get a replay of the start anyway, for sure. Alonso comes over and squeezes Hamilton. The 2 Ferraris are formation flying at the front, blocking the way. Alonso just moves out wide. He certainly didn't cut his teammate any slack there at all. And his teammate Hamilton might well be saying, hey, come on, that is a bit OTT for teammates. But if you're head-to-head as racing drivers, I think it's hard but fair, as I said earlier. Hamilton then will barge straight out to the runoff area on the outside. We're going to see it from Hamilton's car now. And Alonso so close. Even Alonso was on the AstroTurf there. Now Hamilton is on the inside line effectively for the turn in. He's side by side. Look at that at 190 miles an hour. Incredible bravery. And then ultimately common sense for Hamilton, because he knew he had to get out of the throttle. Carnage going on down at the bus stop chicane. A replay then of Wirtz spinning out and back down to what is currently last for Alex Wirtz. And this then is a replay of Webber getting a better run out of Eau Rouge on his, we suspect, lighter fuel load, squeezing Kovalainen onto the less satisfactory piece of track, and he's away. Good scrap here between Coulthard and Jarno Trulli.
Yep, this is the battle for 11th place, and well, the ruthlessness of Fernando Alonso is very clear there for all to see. Not saying there's anything necessarily wrong with that. Certainly, I'm sure a number of other drivers who want to be champion ought to be doing the same kind of things, but he certainly did not cut Lewis Hamilton any slack there at all. And the feeling between those two is not the finest between 2 teammates, and that's putting it mildly. That's the top 8 at the moment then. Rosberg still trying to keep in touch. He's only just 3 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton, so it's a fantastic opening stint for Rosberg. Webber is 6th, 7th is Kovalainen, 8th Heidfeld, 9th Ralf Schumacher. In 10th place is Robert Kubica. He's making up ground then, having had to take that engine penalty after changing his engine before qualifying yesterday. But Hamilton is a bit slower. He just did a low 1:50 on that last lap, so he's being dropped at the moment. 4 seconds now behind the race leader.
Yeah, I would think McLaren will be pretty disappointed here too, and this will be Heidfeld passing Kovalainen for position, and that is for 7th position at the moment. Kovalainen tries to come back on him as Heidfeld went wide, and surely he'll maintain that now with track position down into La Source.
Here's a look at Ralf Schumacher being passed by Robert Kubica for 9th.
Yeah, and how brave was that? Right around the outside.
Lap 7 of the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. We're in the southern part of Belgium, in the Ardennes Forest, and one of the world's finest racetracks. Kimi Räikkönen at the moment, who's won here twice, is pulling away at the front. He started in pole position alongside his teammate Felipe Massa. He is now 2.5 seconds ahead of him. Alonso, after some very hard but fair with teammate Hamilton off the start line, is 3rd. Hamilton is 4th, but doesn't seem to have much pace in the opening stint. We're riding on board here with Adrian Sutil, who's undoubtedly the story of the race so far. He's battling with David Coulthard for 11th place in this revised Spiker. It made its debut at Monza. You didn't really see the advantage of it because the big advantage is it's got more downforce, and Monza is a low downforce circuit. But here at Spa, it's coming into its own, and Sutil is absolutely flying. Got a great start up to 15th. He's passed Trulli and Button. He's now 12th and hunting down David Coulthard. Räikkönen leading Massa by 2 seconds. Alonso's 3rd. Let's get some radio from Coulthard.
Don't let the car behind you bother you. Don't let the car behind bother you.
Helpful. Alonso 3rd, Hamilton 4th, 7 seconds, now 8 seconds behind the race leader. Rosberg holding on in 5th place ahead of Mark Webber, 6th, Heidfeld 7th, Kovalainen is 8th. He's carrying more fuel than the others. He's been passed by Webber and Heidfeld in the early part of this race. Robert Kubica in the 2nd BMW, started 14th, is now up to 9th place. He's passed Ralf Schumacher, who's down to 10th. Then we've got Coulthard and Sutil, the battle for 11th and 12th. As we mentioned, Anthony Davidson started the race from the pit lane. He's currently running in 20th place, but this has been a difficult weekend for Hemel Hempstead's Anthony Davidson in the Super Aguri. He just haven't got the setup right this weekend at all. This is Kubica, though, hunting down Kovalainen. In the mood that Kubica's in, I wouldn't put any money on him not passing him.
Well, Kubica's just 6 seconds behind his teammate, having started about 10 places behind. He's absolutely flying through the field. We know because of the engine penalty. And look at that. He's going to try it at on the way into the Malmedy corner. Kovalainen having none of it. And that is not a traditional overtaking place at all. Different fuel loads, though, definitely on those two cars. But Kubica is really flying. Unless McLaren are going 3 laps further than Ferrari, they're getting thrashed here. It's lap 9. So at the end of lap 8, Hamilton in fourth was 9 seconds adrift of the leaders, and they're falling behind at the thick end of a second a lap.
Sebastian Vettel comes in. Now, we saw a lot of smoke coming out of his car on the formation lap. I don't know what the problem is. It may have been an overfill on the oil, but it was a lot of smoke out of the back of that Toro Rosso. This is lap 12 of the Belgian Grand Prix from Spa-Francorchamps. Robert Kubica has got himself in front of Heikki Kovalainen. That's the battle for 8th and 9th places. Kovalainen carrying more fuel than the BMW. He's going to have to pass him all over again a bit later in the race. That's one we're going to be seeing, I think, for a while. Just weaving across the track there to stop any kind of return from Kovalainen. Räikkönen's leading this one by 4.5 seconds from Felipe Massa. The Ferrari, a long wheelbase car. It's longer overall than the McLaren. It helps in the mid-speed corners. Here's a look at what happens with Kubica and Kovalainen.
Well, Kubica has been much later on the brakes, but not been able to do anything with it. That's a Hamilton-esque overtaking manoeuvre there. Came in very, very deep. Luckily, Kovalainen saw him coming, and he just carried him wide. looking at the amazing Adrian Sutil for Spiker out there in P12. He's passed Truly, Button and Liuzzi during this Grand Prix. He's hanging onto the tail of Coulthard's presumably long first stopping Red Bull, but he's right in there. I mean, he had a good race here in F3 with his teammate, his then teammate Lewis Hamilton. Had an amazing scrap which Hamilton eventually won, but Sutil is good around here, and certainly a young driver that's getting mentioned as outperforming his car.
Yeah, he's made quite a lot of mistakes this year as Adrian Sutil. He's gone off, and that has frustrated his Spiker team management, but he's also shown some flashes of great speed, particularly in the wet free practice on the Saturday morning in Monte Carlo, where he actually was top of the timesheets on that occasion. And certainly a driver that's being talked about as a future star. And it just shows you that if you've got the car under you and you've got the right car working, then you can do a lot in Formula One. So he's gone from the back up to 12th place at the moment, and still a lot of racing to go. Now there's a great scrap going on in the midfield between Rosberg, Webber, Heidfeld, Kubica and Kovalainen. Of those guys, only Kovalainen, we believe, is stopping once. So he is challenging Rosberg today and Webber for best of the rest behind the Ferraris and the McLarens, and there's a lot can happen in that battle. Williams team go to work. Straight race between the two pit crews. They didn't want Webber to jump him. It's a longer fill for Webber, although of course he did come in slightly after Rosberg. Either way, they both go out onto the racetrack for a longish middle stint. Two-stop race for both of these men. And where do they filter back out? 14 laps according to the computer. There is Mark Webber, who's going slightly further.
It's 4.6 miles around here, so obviously that's why it's a 44-lap race to get it just over the 300 kilometres, approaching 200 miles. And a high-speed race it is too.
So Rosberg rejoins 9th, Webber 10th, on board with Sutil, having a go at David Coulthard in the Red Bull. Coulthard has to go defensive. He's making himself a candidate for driver of the day here, Adrian Sutil. Certainly a very eye-catching performance.
He's got such straight line speed now, a lot of that, and it's the Raikkonen first to blink of the Grandees, and Alonso, we think, is about to come directly in behind him. Alonso is in the pits indeed, so Massa takes the lead. Hard tyres go on.
So Hamilton was 3 seconds behind Alonso before Alonso came into the pits. He's got to try and make up that time with the laps of extra fuel that he's got. Depends on how many he's got and how possible that will be. Alonso, a lot of smoke coming out of his breakdowns. It's a very long middle stint for McLaren. Certainly on Alonso's car. And back out he goes onto the racetrack. Heidfeld has gone through. Alonso rejoins then in that gap between Heidfeld and Rosberg. So he re-emerges in 5th place.
Hamilton then running second at the moment, yet to stop. He was 3 seconds behind Alonso. If he's got any speed in his pocket, now is the time to deliver it, because I think all they're aiming at is Massa. Unless Raikkonen has a problem, he's gone into the distance. They've got Hamilton's got a half a chance of a podium, and somehow he's going to have to pull something out over Alonso and Felipe Massa. Louise has found Sebastian Vettel.
Sebastian, what was the problem?
We don't know yet. I mean, obviously something big, so we had to retire. The problem on the circuit was I couldn't steer to the right anymore, so in left-hand corners the car was, like usual, normal, and going into right-hand corners it was getting worse and worse. The car didn't follow what I was asking for, so in fact it didn't turn, and we thought in the beginning it could be something related to the tires, but after changing them and going out of the box, which is a right corner again, I could feel that it didn't help, so that's a bit of a shame, because I mean, the race was only 5 laps old, but we seem to have a quite good race pace.
Thanks.
So the Ferrari of Felipe Massa and the McLaren of Lewis Hamilton both coming into the pits. Hamilton stationary for quite a long time. Massa taking on an extra 16 laps. Hamilton did not have too many extra laps then in comparison with Alonso, so he didn't have great pace in qualifying yesterday, we now learn, and we've seen already in this race he's not got great pace in the opening stint. Let's see if he likes the second set of tyres a little bit more. It's a very long middle stint for Lewis Hamilton, and let's see if he can make this one work for him.
Well, he's still in sight of Fernando Alonso. There are the two McLarens in the top of your picture. And as you say, let's see if he's a bit more comfortable with the balance of this. But we thought yesterday his quali lap was compromised by not really being able to warm up his brakes and tyres properly. But you're right, he seems to have struggled on pace against Alonso last weekend in Monza and this weekend. Some talk that Alonso keeps a lot more of his information to himself now. Is that compromising Lewis?
Sutil showing a little bit of the other side of his character.
Somewhere in there then, Sutil has lost out to Jarno Trulli anyway, and has a little bump across the grass. Should get away with that. And this is Hamilton missing the final corner of the lap, and will not get penalised for that.
27 years of age now, Kimi Raikkonen. He's been knocking on the door of World Championships over the years. Moving to Ferrari, he thought would bring him that much longed-for title, and it's not really gone right. He's had 2 non-finishes this season. He's had, as I mentioned before, erratic form, but when he is on it, he is really on it.
Yeah, Hamilton's lost 4/10 of a second on Alonso on this lap, so he's not coming back at him. I wonder if Lewis is tightening up now. That flamboyant, nothing to lose, everything to gain, sort of new puppy dog almost coming into Formula 1. All of a sudden, every corner, every apex counts. You can't afford to make any mistakes. And that's when you start just tightening up a little bit and not letting your natural skills come out. Heidfeld finally pits then at the end of lap 18.
Yeah, Alonso's got much more experience of being in title fights than Lewis has. As Heidfeld comes in, another new set of the hard Bridgestone tyres go on. Dr. Mario Tyson there, the team principal, on the wall overseeing that Swiss watch-like operation by his mechanics. And he was saying last weekend in Monza that they believe they have all the tools and resources as he comes back out in front of Ralf Schumacher, but behind the Renault Heikki Kovalainen. So Heidfeld is now behind that one-stopping Renault.
And this is then must be Kubica on Coulthard. Coulthard 1 stopping, Kubica 2 stopping after his first pit stop. Ted has news.
Yeah, and this is an interesting battle because it's right in the middle of the Brits. It's a battle of the Brits at Spa today between David Coulthard and Jenson Button. There you can see Coulthard, Kubica behind him, and Jenson Button behind that. But Honda really need Jenson Button to try and stay on the tails of that BMW, because if he can and get anywhere close to Coulthard, then that battle could run to the flag. But Kubica, of course, on a 2-stop. Coulthard and Button, it seems, on a 1. So BMW will be wanting Kubica to get past that Red Bull as soon as possible.
Yeah, we're really seeing here the penalty of those engine drops playing out on Grand Prix Day. The 10-place grid drop for an engine change. You're out of position. You're fighting cars that are slower than you on a different strategy, hoping to steal a World Championship point from somebody else's problems, really. And there you are with a racy car and a competitive fuel load, but you've got to keep passing them. So it's not only do you go 10 places back on the grid, you just spend the afternoon fighting cars you shouldn't be anywhere near.
So while Kubica attacks the back of David Coulthard, Kimi Raikkonen not pulling away now from Felipe Massa. The gap is just 4.5 seconds. Alonso and Hamilton still 3rd and 4th. Approaching the halfway stage in the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. Kimi Raikkonen is the race leader ahead of Felipe Massa, who's pegged the gap at 4.5 seconds. More or less what it's been ever since the first round of pit stops. Here are the McLarens giving chase. Fernando Alonso, the reigning world champion, and teammate Lewis Hamilton, who is just under 3 seconds behind him. Those gaps have really not changed very much at all over the course of this race, but you'd have to say that our information is that they've both got a similar amount of fuel, with possibly Lewis carrying a fraction more. So there is a possibility that things may change a little bit later between those two in the race. Heikki Kovalainen is 5th at the moment for Renault, having yet to make his first pit stop. He is on a different strategy from the rest of the front runners. He's racing against Heidfeld, Rosberg and Webber for best of the rest behind the Ferraris and the McLarens. And it's a great battle between those 4 drivers here today. Curiously, Alex Wirtz there making the pass and then immediately pitting. That was for 16th. And then immediately deciding, so normally you wouldn't want to take that kind of risk when you're on an in-lap anyway. But hey ho, that's what it's run through Eau Rouge with the world champion. This is one of the two over 20-minute bursts of constant full throttle here at Spa that I was mentioning earlier on, as Heikki Kovalainen, the sole remaining Renault in the field. Giancarlo Fisichella has retired. Onto the soft tyres goes Kovalainen. He's fueled to the finish, and we'll see what he can do this afternoon. He's certainly beginning to really look the part now as a Grand Prix driver, and with all that's going on at McLaren, the feeling between the two drivers, here he comes back out again. It'll be interesting to see what happens at Renault if Alonso does move on, whether he'll go back to Renault and which of the two drivers they'll keep. Back out he comes then, behind Coulthard, behind Kubica, so he's back out in 10th place, Heikki Kovalainen. Well, Ron Dennis came out with a phrase earlier this weekend when he was talking about the meeting he had with Fernando Alonso on the morning of the Hungarian Grand Prix, where Alonso said he had information on his computer and the confrontation happened. He said competitive animals know no limits. That was his justification for it. And well, I think we've seen that again today from Fernando Alonso at the start with Lewis Hamilton. A really tensely fought start between the two of them. Side by side into Eau Rouge corner they were on the opening lap. And Hamilton realises now he is in the middle of a serious dogfight for the title. Coulthard pits from 10th.
Away it goes, soft tyres on then. You've got to use both of them in the Grand Prix, so if you're one stopping, you've got to put the options on. Or the other tyres, I should say. Just squeezes inside the white line, does David Coulthard, and away. And he is in front then of Sutil. And none of them have got to stop again. Barrichello then is the man running furthest in this Grand Prix on fuel. So DC not looking like he's going to get a point today.
Hamilton 4th. 8 more World Championship points will take him to beyond the 100 mark. Not many people have ever done that in the history of Grand Prix racing. He's coming out behind someone who's just come out of the pits. Let's enjoy Eau Rouge with him. He said on Thursday in the press conference that Eau Rouge is one of the great pleasures of being a Grand Prix driver. It may be slightly easier than it used to be with the V8 engines and the big runoff areas, but it is still one heck of a test.
Whoever came out in front of him is just taking a little trip across the grass. Pretty convenient for Lewis. I don't think it was, well, it definitely wasn't a driver he was racing, because he's 3.5 seconds now behind teammate Alonso as he dances the back of the car through Rivage. It's not how you want it. Back is not sticking how he needs it. He's having to, you can sense he's slightly unsure of the back of that car. And who was it then? Davidson, who did a bit of the rallycross, and Hamilton focusing on his apexes. That service road there, quite handy for getting back onto the racetrack. The final part of that replay then, simply just locking up too deep into Lecum.
15 laps to go in the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. You're riding on board with Takuma Sato in 15th place. He's in last year's Honda. Jenson Button's in this year's. And Sato is trying everything he can to get past his former teammate from the old BAR days. The story of this race so far, Kimi Raikkonen in the Ferrari from pole position has led effortlessly. His teammate Felipe Massa has no answer for him. The gap is just under 5 seconds. Alonso and Hamilton were side by side at the start into Eau Rouge corner. Breathtaking stuff. Hamilton had to just back off slightly. Alonso took that 3rd place and he holds it to this moment. He is 4 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton in 4th place, and we've got a wonderful battle for best of the rest between Heidfeld, Rosberg, Webber, Kubica and Kovalainen. Kovalainen's on a different strategy from the others. He's at 1 stopping, the rest are all 2 stopping, but at the moment his pace isn't really strong enough to challenge for best of the rest. It's really between Heidfeld, Rosberg and Webber. In then comes current 6th place man Nico Rosberg in the Williams. He was one of the first to pit first time round, certainly first of the front runners, and he is again 2nd time round. 14 laps to go. He'll have to switch onto the softer tyre. There it is with the white stripe for the final stint. He's in a very tight battle here for points between himself, Heidfeld and Webber and Kubica.
It's Raikkonen, the leader, at the end of lap 31.
And a very healthy lead over Felipe Massa, his teammate. That was beautifully choreographed by the Ferrari team. and Raikkonen goes back out. Alonso on that last first time round pitted at the same time as Raikkonen. This time, because you can see he's done a much longer middle stint, so he will go a few laps further. And now Raikkonen comes out behind the McLaren. He's come out behind Alonso. Massa leading, Alonso second, Raikkonen third, and Hamilton fourth.
Oh, Coulthard then out of the race. David Coulthard then looks like he's retired with some technical problems. Indeed he has. I won't try and second guess what that might be. He's already got his pit lane limiter up because his fuel flap is up, so which is unusual to see out on the racetrack. And this is Sato then shaping up on Jenson Button. And how is this going to work out? He's going to go straight around the outside and take the position. That is 13th then for Takuma Sato around the outside.
Felipe Massa, who briefly led then after Raikkonen's pit stop, but he's well adrift of his teammate today. A lot of brake dust coming off there. There's only 3 big stops around here at Spa-Francorchamps. It's not a heavy braking circuit. Much more emphasis on aerodynamic efficiency. It's about having lots of downforce with as little as possible drag on the straights.
So Alonso leads from Hamilton at the moment after the 2 stops of the Ferraris, the final stops scheduled anyway.
Because into the pits comes Fernando Alonso. Lewis Hamilton then goes through. He's going to do at least one more lap. Good stop for McLaren, and he's back out, fueled to the finish. It's Kubica pits from 6th.
Massa's definitely coming back at Raikkonen. Have the Ferrari team called off the squabble at the front, as so often happens after the second stops, when it's they pretty much declare its status quo. But at the moment, according to my reckoning, Massa's only 3.3 seconds behind Kimi Raikkonen.
Alonso doesn't need to be held up too much by this traffic, because Hamilton has stayed out quite a bit further, a bit longer than Alonso has. 3 laps more so far on this stint. At the moment, unfortunately for him, he's not fast enough to make the difference. That last lap by Alonso, 1:48.4, Hamilton a 1:49.2, and this is the moment where if he had the speed, he needed to turn it on, but he just doesn't seem to be able to. As Alex Wurz retires, he becomes our 4th retirement from this Belgian Grand Prix in the Williams. As we look at Liuzzi here, battling with that Jenson Button.
I love the way Liuzzi at 170 miles an hour looked over, like, where's he going?
He was 1.5 seconds behind Button, who seems to be travelling quite slowly. Lewis Hamilton pits from 3rd. Ted Kravitz.
James, that he just hasn't been quick enough. He's been consistently a couple of tenths slower than Fernando Alonso. No matter what the big fight, there will undoubtedly be the talking point of this race between them on the first race. But just looking what's going on next door at Honda, it's terminal for Jenson Button. They've come out, they've cleared a space in the garage. They're about to retire Jenson Button in the Honda. Bad day for him.
So Raikkonen leading, Massa 2nd, Alonso 3rd, and Hamilton 4th, with 7 laps to go to the finish here at Francorchamps. The closing stages of the Belgian Grand Prix from Spa-Francorchamps. We are riding on board with 8th place man Heikki Kovalainen, and Robert Kubica in the BMW is right behind. The story of this race, it's been all about the Ferraris. Kimi Raikkonen and Felipe Massa, from the first all-Ferrari front row of the year, have dominated this race. Raikkonen has always had the upper hand over teammate Massa and has led serenely. He's leading now in the closing stage with Massa 2nd. Alonso and Hamilton, the 2 McLarens, have had no answer for the pace of Ferrari today. They've been an average of about half a second to 6/10 of a second a lap slower than the Ferraris. It has been a whooping. There's no other way to describe it. Heidfeld has won. It looks like he's going to win the battle for best of the rest in the BMW after a fight with Rosberg and Webber and Kovalainen. Robert Kubica is trying to take a point off Heikki Kovalainen in the closing stages with Ralf Schumacher in 10th place. Jenson Button is out of the race. There he is in the garage, a very disappointed man. That's a bit unkind of the cameraman. So he's out, so is Wirtz, so is Vettel, so is Fisichella, and so with Louise Goodman is David Coulthard.
Well, David, the good news is that you managed to find somebody to give you a lift back on the motorbike, but bad news, hydraulics failure again. Did you have much warning of it?
No, it was like in Friday practice when it failed in the middle of a rouge, which is never good because you lose your throttle control and your steering, your power steering. Thankfully this time it happened before Blanchimont, so I had a bit more room to play with, and obviously no way to get it back to the pits because you lose throttle control.
It's a pretty reasonable race up till then.
Yeah, I was a bit heavy at the beginning, so quite slow, but then as the fuel came off, then I found performance. But very poor on the entries, braking into the chicane and the hairpin. A lot of problems there, which is not usual for this car, so I need to try and understand what went wrong there.
Mark Webber in the sister Red Bull going extremely well, up in 7th. 3.6 seconds behind Rosberg. They need a couple of points. They want to stay ahead of Toyota in the World Championship. I think they must have given up any thought of catching Williams for the constructors' position. But Webber then 7th at the moment. And we found a Button.
Yeah, short sprint down to Honda to find out. Jensen, what was your problem?
It's hydraulic failure. So first of all, the clutch is slipping, and then the power steering fails. And then everything goes. So yeah, I came in.
Coulthard's just had the same issue. He said it happened all of a sudden. Did you have any warning of yours?
And the team came on the radio as it happened, saying you might have a hydraulic issue, and that's when I felt it. It was the lap that I pitted on.
Thanks, gents.
Oh, off the track goes Lewis Hamilton, I believe. Yes, in the McLaren at that Pouhon corner. Possibly a little lapse of concentration there from the 22-year-old.
He's pushing hard. He's got the gap down to 4.5 seconds to Alonso now, but he's so lucky that is now a tarmac apron, because that always used to be such a bumpy gravel trap that just threw you straight into the barriers a couple of years ago. And he's gone in, just picked up a bit of understeer onto the dirty part of the track, and quite sensibly just straightened it up, collected it up, and then back onto the track.
He gets a second chance. Hamilton off track. He lost 3 seconds to Alonso as a result of that little excursion. And here he is with slightly dirtier tyres, but only one more lap to go. He's taking one of those plastic rip-off strips off his visor, so he'll now have completely clear vision for the remaining 4.5 miles to the flag. Well, it's been all about Ferrari here this afternoon. They are going to clinch their 15th Constructors' Championship as a result of this 1-2 finish here at Spa-Francorchamps. And Kimi Raikkonen, who was a 2-time winner going into this race, becomes a 3-time winner of the Belgian Grand Prix, the ultimate driver's circuit. He's given the ultimate performance yesterday and today. It's victory for Kimi Raikkonen ahead of Felipe Massa, and there is no answer to that from McLaren. They are a distant 3rd and 4th. Alonso takes a vital point out of Hamilton's championship lead by finishing 3rd. Lewis Hamilton will come in 4th place, with Heidfeld 5th, Rosberg 6th, Webber 7th, and Kovalainen in 8th place. And it's donuts time for Kimi Raikkonen.
Excellent. That's what you want to see. He's not allowed to do it, but we love it.
And there is your race winner, 27-year-old Kimi Raikkonen, his 4th victory of the season, the 13th of his career in his 119th Grand Prix start. And it gives Ferrari the 2007 Constructors' Championship. It's the 3rd All-Ferrari 1-2 of the season. They are the Constructors' Champions of 2007. On we go then to Fuji, a brand new circuit in Japan in 2 weeks' time. Can Lewis Hamilton get some momentum back into his title challenge there?
It wasn't too bad. Of course, if you know that your teammate goes 1 lap longer, you always need to make sure that you have gap enough. But actually, after the first pit stop, I had plenty of gap. I was able to go fast enough to make sure that even with the small problems on a pit stop, we should be okay. So after that wasn't too difficult, but you never know. There's a lot of people to overtake, and sometimes you lose more time than you want on those. So you still need to keep pushing all the time.
I think my strategy was quite good. Unfortunately, I had a bad car on the first stint. It was too much oversteer. It was difficult to follow him. But then I improved the car to the second and the third stint, which we were very, very competitive during the whole stints. And unfortunately, it was too late.
Do you think Lewis was being a bit too aggressive?
No, I don't think so. I think the start was always very difficult here in Spa because the first corner is 180 degrees. It's very wide, the main straight, so it makes a lot of possibilities in terms of racing line. And we were Felipe, Luis and me together in the first corner, and Luis and me together in the third corner. And at the end we all keep our starting position.
Kimi Raikkonen then takes his third win at Spa, and this must have been one of the most satisfying for him and Ferrari. A Ferrari 1-2, and then a McLaren 1-2, Heidfeld taking fifth, and then Rosberg, that excellent drive from Mark Webber, and Kovalainen beating Kubica to the final point. The destiny of the driver's title, well, it seems to lie between the two McLaren drivers despite the victory of Raikkonen. Hamilton's lead now just 2 points over Alonso, Raikkonen 13 points off the lead, Massa 20 points adrift. And the Constructors' title, after the disqualification of McLaren, confirmed today, as expected, as going to Ferrari. Tough day then for Lewis Hamilton, with maybe fourth place the best possible result, with a car that didn't look today as if it was especially on song.
Not really sure what it is, but the car didn't feel too bad, but I wasn't able to gain time or improve my lap time throughout the race. We need to figure out what that is and if we can improve. But we still got points, which is the most important thing. I think it's down. Was it down to 2 points now? It's not over, so we just got to keep going. It's getting close, but I'm going to be very, very aggressive in the next couple of races. So.
How much does that 2 point margin worry you?
It doesn't worry me. It's just it's when you're in the car and you know you're better than what you're doing, and you can't go any faster. If you push, then you lose time. So all you can do is sit back and watch the opposition move away from you.
But how can you be confident that you're not going to have that issue at the races that we've got coming up? Tracks at which, on paper at least, Ferrari should be quite dominant.
Possibly. I'm not really too bothered at Ferrari. I think they're a bit out of the picture, to be honest. Okay, they won today. They did a good job. But for me, it's to beat Fernando. So. In the next race, no one knows the circuit. I'm very, very much a fast learner, so I think we should be very good over there. And in the last two, I think I've heard they're good tracks and ones that I should adapt to quite well, so I'm looking forward to it.
How would you sum up the weekend?
Okay. Could be better, but no. We need to improve.
Thanks, Liz.
Well, he's got a 2 point lead, but these last three races of the season are going to be a huge test for Lewis Hamilton. We'll get the final verdict of Mark Blundell in a few minutes after we've given you one more chance at our ITV F1 competition.
This weekend we're giving away a fantastic trip for two to Shanghai for the Chinese Grand Prix on the 7th of October. You'll have return flights and 4 nights accommodation in an executive room at the Hilton Shanghai. The hotel's set in the heart of the city's entertainment centre and is within walking distance of the main business and shopping districts. Once you get to the track, you'll also have grandstand seats to watch all the action, an official merchandise bag, plus an exclusive tour of the McLaren Mercedes garage. So to be in with a chance of winning this great prize, courtesy of Hilton Racing, here's the question from the world champion.
Who was the last driver to win for McLaren the World Championship? A. Michael Schumacher. B. Jacques Villeneuve. C. Mika Häkkinen. Good luck.
Nice one, Fernando. So that question again, who was the last driver to win the World Championship for McLaren? A. Michael Schumacher, B. Jacques Villeneuve, or C. Mika Häkkinen? The number to dial 0901 293 2020 or text F1 plus your answer of A, B or C to 63337. Calls cost £1 per entry from a BT landline. Calls from other networks and mobiles may be higher. Text will also cost £1 plus the standard network rate. You must be 18 or over to enter. Cable and satellite viewers can press the red button, and lines close 6 p.m. Tuesday 25th of September.
Good luck with that. Kimi Raikkonen, our winner of the Belgian Grand Prix today. A convincing Ferrari 1-2, Mark. How much did it surprise you?
It wasn't really a big surprise. You saw that Ferrari was strong all weekend long, and when it came to the race, again, they used their tyres efficiently, consistent laps they were doing, and just a little bit more raw performance than the McLarens.
Lewis Hamilton now knows he's in a huge battle with his teammate Fernando Alonso for this driver's title. It was underlined to him in that first run down to Eau Rouge.
Well, you know, it kind of gave Lewis an impression of what the last few races really mean to Alonso, and they're going to take a lot of a pair of them really in terms of what they do, because Alonso pushes his teammate out wide. He doesn't really consider too much at all what's going on. He's concerned about himself. You see there, Lewis gets pushed out, gets traction low on that left-hand side, and they get the drag down into Eau Rouge. And this, for me, is scintillating stuff there. You just see that they get to about 165, 170 miles an hour. You think at this point Lewis has got it, and all of a sudden that shadow comes in of Alonso's car, and he sticks his wheels there, and he sticks his car on the line. Ron Dennis not really perturbed. He's seen it all before, but great driving from the pair of those guys.
Yeah, no one really backed off there. Was it absolutely fair from Fernando's point of view?
I think it was fair. I mean, Alonso got a little bit hampered by Massa just locking up into the source hairpin off the start, and he just had to go and do what he needed to make sure his car was okay. Unfortunately, he pushed Lewis out, but fair stuff in the driving.
But then Lewis really couldn't match the pace of either his teammate or certainly the Ferraris. He was lucky really to salvage fourth place because he went off at Prix late in the whole contest.
You know, a quick corner down there, building up to about 170, over 5G nearly in lateral load, and Lewis pushing towards the end just a little bit too much, just falls off the circuit. Luckily for him, they've got that runoff area now and they can recover quite easily. But just showed you that he wasn't giving up inside the cockpit, just didn't have quite the car underneath him.
Now, Kimi Raikkonen, the winner today, his third win here at Spa. What does that say to you about Kimi as a driver?
It tells me a great deal that, you know, Kimi is now at one with his Ferrari. We've seen it time and time again, but it also tells me what a great shame that he didn't have some strong results in the season, because I think he would be in contention for the World Championship. Saying that, a lot's going to go on in the next few races, and I do think that he's got half a chance of pulling it off, but McLaren are very strong.
OK, Mark, thanks very much indeed. So that's the Formula One season in Europe. We now head to Japan, to China and Brazil. The Japanese Grand Prix will be the next race. The politics, we hope, are over. And now we're down to a straight fight for the driver's title between Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, and just maybe today's winner of the Belgian Grand Prix, Kimi Raikkonen.